Good morning, Pastor Tyrone P. Jones, Church for the City, Yuma, Arizona. With Russia's invasion of the Ukraine, coupled with the ongoing COVID pandemic, there's been a dramatic uptick in the end times rhetoric. With that usually comes the increase of some selling their homes and moving to remote locations, others stockpiling food, weapons, and ammunition, which I'm not knocking any of that, but still others are seemingly paralyzed with fear and dread. To be sure, we are surrounded by events and developments that could be interpreted as signs of the last days. On every hand, we see famines, earthquakes, persecutions, wars, and rumors of wars, which in fact mark the end times according to Mark 13, 7 through 9, and Matthew 24, 6 through 7. But perhaps we need to just kind of pump the brakes a bit. Has there ever been a period in the history of the war of the world, when that was not the case? From a recent article, this was a quote: "Can you imagine what it was like to be a believer in Rome under the Emperor Caligula or Nero or Domitian, to face the arena, the stake, or the lion's den for your faith? Do you think that they may have thought it was near the end? What do you suppose Christians were thinking when the Roman legions captured Jerusalem and destroyed the temple in AD 70? Or when Attila overran Europe in the 5th century, or the Vikings in the 9th century, or Genghis Khan in the 13th century, the Muslim Turks in the 16th century? Might any of people then concluded that this was near the end, especially when the Black Death happened in Europe and 25 million lives was taken in a period of 5 years? Or how about the situation when the so-called Great War took place? 37 million lives was lost last century. A few decades later, we see the evil and diabolical acts of Hitler and the Nazi hordes that covered the continent, and 6 million Jews was wiped out. Clearly, if you know anything about history, you know that the early 21st century has no monopoly on death and disaster and devastation. We've been seeing it for centuries. Now, certainly we are living in the last days. We have been ever since Jesus ascended on that hill outside of Jerusalem in AD 33. But to be more specific, what if this is the end times? What should the response be? The Bible clearly tells us in Mark 13 and Luke 21 that we're to be vigilant. That means to just keep fighting the good faith. Furthermore, the Apostle Peter gives a straightforward answer when the question was given to him. He wrote to believers who was under severe persecution in his day, and he specifically referenced things like the heavens will pass away with a great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat, and both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned up in 2 Peter 3:10. So we know he's talking about end times. Peter then does not suggest that believers head for the hills or kind of adopt this fortress mentality. Instead, he says, since all these things will be dissolved, what manner of person ought you to be in holy conduct and godliness? That's 2 Peter 3:11 and 12. As Peter sees it, end time Christians are called to be one thing. They are to practice holiness and do good to others wherever and whenever they can. The Apostle John continues this theme, noting how we're supposed to work the works of God while it's still day. That's John 9:4. So let me encourage you to take heart and maintain hope. Harold Graham said this, I quote, "Jesus is on the throne and he ain't nervous," end of quote. And one day, perhaps soon, he will leave that throne and he'll come back in triumph. Until then, remember, we aren't called to be the planning committee for his return. We're called to be the welcoming committee. God bless you. Have a great day.